Okay, we're back in Monaco here at the World Nuclear Fuel Conference, and very lucky to have Jonathan Hinze with me now. Welcome. Glad you
Thank
could
you.
sit with me for just a few minutes because I know it's busy schedule today.
That's right.
Why don't you give us your name, where you were born, what your background is, please?
Sure. So my name's Jonathan Hinze. I am the president of UxC, where I was born. So I was born in Cleveland, Ohio, but my
Go
parents...
Bucks.
Bucks? You mean Ohio State?
Ohio State, yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah, my parents are from Germany, so I grew up in Germany for a bit, and that's the other part of my background. But
What about your college education? What did you study?
college, undergrad, I studied actually East Asian studies, and that brought me to Japan. And then from Japan, I got into nuclear. Actually, that's how I got into nuclear. I worked for the Japanese utilities.
I see.
And I also did a master's at George Washington University in international trade investment policy, sort of economics background. So that's my focus is economics and markets and everything that has to do with money and prices and supply, demand, all those good things.
So how'd you go from Japan back to the U.S.?
That was coming back to being getting to grad school and trying
I see.
get
Okay.
it. Yeah.
Okay, and now you're at UX.
That's right. I've been at UxC now since 2006, so what is it, 20 years?
Wow, time flies.
Yeah, and I took on the president role in 2018 since then, and so, yeah.
Tell the audience.
What do we do?
Yeah.
So we are the world proud publisher of uranium and other market prices for fuel. We publish a lot of the market intelligence, the basics of what's going on contract-wise, supply-demand fundamentals, forecasts, price forecasts, all the sort of market analysis that the industry needs. So, and we do a lot of consulting and advisory services as well. Work with everyone in the markets: utilities, suppliers, traders, investors, governments, anyone that wants market intelligence. That's where we come in.
And if they want to reach out and find more information, what's your
Go to www.uxc.com.
uxc.com. Okay, and you may
Thanks for
find
the
some
pitch,
people.
Jack.
Well, and they'll put it up on the screen. My interns will put it up on the screen
Sounds
so people
great.
can see it also.
Okay.
Well, that's great. And you're here at this conference, obviously, to talk to people, to see what's going on in the markets, and
right.
anything secret you've learned that you're going to share with us today.
Well, I don't know about the secrets, but I said this last night at the reception, but I'm seeing so many new entrants in this market.
Right.
It's a little bit overwhelming, to be honest. I don't, as I said, I've been doing nuclear now 25 years, and I remember the day when we had lots of conferences with standing room only back in the mid 2000s, and it feels even more like this market's just it's taking off like a rocket ship. We've got new players obviously on the demand side with the hyperscalers, and whether it's shipping industry or all kinds of players, but also on the investment community in the trading world. We've got more traders I can remember. We even have new brokers. We've
Right.
got just a wave of new entrants, and I think that's changing the market a bit. Some people might not be, some of the incumbents might not be so happy about
Right.
the new competition, but it means there's more demand, more counterparties to do deals with, and I think that's a really exciting aspect. More money that's coming in the market.
Well, for me, I've seen this whole group of companies built around Founders Fund and Peter Thiel come in, and that's very, very massive new investments
There's
that
a
are
lot of
coming
money.
from.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Peter Thiel, sure, but Silicon Valley money's coming, but there's a lot of money coming from the Middle East. There's money coming from Norway's pension fund.
Right.
There's money just
Singapore,
everywhere.
yeah.
The money's flowing in, and our industry is not a massive one. At best, we're at the nuclear fuel market's at best a $30-40 billion market, which is tiny compared to an oil or gas or some of the other big ones. And so, if you think about just adding $5-10 billion to that market, which is what's happening now, I mean that's a game changer.
Right.
So I don't know exactly where it's all headed, but I can tell that this is not this is the beginning, not the end of this.
Great, very good. Well, in the last few seconds we have for this interview, can you if you have any message you want to give to the audience? I mean, I have viewers from around the world now, so please pass along anything you want to say.
Gosh, that's a tough one. I would say, look, nuclear, it's not a huge industry. It's a quirky one. as Jack and I know from many years of doing this. That said, there's a lot of fundamentals that are very similar to other markets. But if you're interested in this market and in actually getting deeply ingrained in nuclear, you really need to do your homework. You can't just come at it and expect that you can just learn this thing overnight. There's a lot of intricacies. There's a lot of history that sort of shapes how this market works.
And there's a huge future now.
But there's a big future, but that doesn't mean that you can come in and dictate the terms. I think people who want to be in this market before the growth story, they also have to figure out how this market works right now, because you're going to be better set to take advantage of that growth if you understand the mechanisms that underpin this industry.
Well, thanks, Jonathan,
Yeah,
for stopping
thank you.
by,
All
and
right.
good to have
good talking to you.
Good to
All
have
right.
you. Hello, everybody, back again. Next interview here in Monaco with Carl Perez. Welcome. Glad to see you. Glad to see you here. We've talked before, but why don't you just tell the audience your name, where you were born, a little bit about your education, what your degrees are in.
Perfect.
Introduce yourself.
So it's relatively short, so it'll be pretty easy. But Carl Perez, I was born and raised in New York City, which is actually where I grew up and spent the majority of my life. I actually live right next to a natural gas plant in the heart of Manhattan, and that's really what initiated my whole climate journey and wanting to get involved in nuclear. And so ultimately went to college near Boston at Babson College, and from there actually created my first nuclear company in the reactor space. So in fact, I only have a bachelor's, but I ended up spending 12 years in advanced nuclear, of which 8 were really devoted to developing molten salt reactors.
Molten salt, okay.
Exactly.
That's interesting.
But we wanted to run on waste because, in fact, my family upbringing, they were originally from France, and they were anti-nuclear.
I see.
They were protesting against the construction of nuclear power plants. And so what's interesting is we were telling ourselves, well, maybe these molten salt reactors could address the issues that made us anti-nuclear. And naturally, I came for the molten salt reactors and came out with an even greater appreciation of what light water reactors do. And just became unabashedly, unapologetically pro-nuclear. And so when we actually did a couple of tests, proof of concept, to take spent fuel and put in our molten salt reactor concept, that's when it just hit us. Wait a minute. We can make this business a recycling business.
I see.
Let's actually focus on being reactor agnostic and feeding uranium transuranics to the entire fleet of advanced reactors and current reactors.
Why don't you explain transuranics to the audience?
Yeah,
After you have fission in a reactor and you take the fuel and you reprocess it or you sort of recycle it, you end up with some wastes, which are called transuranics, which actually are not waste now because they can be used for things.
You're absolutely right. So essentially when you pull spent nuclear fuel out of a reactor, on average, obviously it depends on the burnup, the original enrichment, the cooling time, but really what you have is 95% uranium untapped. You have 1% plutonium, approximately, and then you have 4% of fission products.
Right.
So in those fission products are interesting isotopes that you can reuse in the medical space. It's not our near-term focus. Our focus is really pulling out the uranium and that plutonium that's mixed with minor actinides. So what we do is we take that 1% plutonium, mix it with roughly 3 to 4% of the uranium that's in there. And so really what we're extracting is 92% uranium that could be re-enriched and put back into a reactor.
And what's the company name?
Exodys Energy.
Okay, can you,
Exactly.
Do you have a website?
Yeah, of course. So one of the co-founders of Exodys Energy, half of our team obviously American naval reactor oriented folks, but also people from the financial world, and then the other half of the team is actually folks from France. So a lot of our technical activities are actually occurring not too far from here.
Okay.
And that's where we're actually building out some of the mechanical interfaces of our system. So we're looking to move to South Carolina later this year, and that's where we're going to build the full-scale Monaco.
Will that be at the Savannah River plant site?
It's not going to be at the site specifically. This is going to be our own headquarters where we just built. So it's going to be a non-radioactive Monaco.
I see.
A lot of the cost of recycling honestly come down to the replacement cost, the interventions, because no process is perfect. So you're going to be losing 1 to 2 tons, here and there, and you need to do sweeps to make sure that your clients are getting the material that they sent you in the first place.
Now, France has long been in the reprocessing or recycling for nuclear fuel.
Absolutely.
Right? And they have an active plant here now.
You are correct. They have La Hague, which is where they reprocess roughly 1,600 metric tons of spent nuclear fuel on an annual basis across really 2 main lines. They're actually building a Lahawk 2.0, so they're expanding that capacity to be able to put more recycled fuel in their current fleet. What we're really trying to do is champion or at least build out the infrastructure in the United States so we can initiate a circular nuclear fuel economy.
The United States did have reprocessing at one time. There was a plant outside Buffalo, the West Valley plant, that operated for some time, operated by Nuclear Fuel Services.
Correct.
Built by actually the company W.R. Grace, which was in the chemical business. And there was another plant built in southern Illinois by General Electric, but that never operated. And then, as I recall from my history, President Carter and Gerald Ford got into a discussion about the use of plutonium and decided we wouldn't use plutonium in the United States, and so that's pretty much ended reprocessing. I think that's the history in the U.S. at least.
So and I'll try to keep it short as well, but ultimately in 1974, India detonates a nuclear test based on material that they recovered through reprocessing of CANDU fuel.
That's correct. Canadian fuel.
Exactly. And so what ended up happening is all the countries that wanted to sign 1, 2, 3 agreements in the middle of the Cold War with the United States were saying, well, we want to have enrichment and reprocessing capabilities. And so President Carter indefinitely deferred reprocessing until we had better technologies for materials control and accountancy, till we get a proper hand on technologies that perhaps co-deposit plutonium with other materials, so it's not in a pure form. And that's what France does. They pull out pure plutonium. It's also operated by a state-owned entity, so it's very different. But in the private sector in the United States, we only do co-deposition, so you never have a pure plutonium stream. But coming back to really how the history played itself out, 77 indefinite deferral, and then after the Reagan administration reauthorized it in 81. But the damage has been done. And if you're a recycler, you're not going to want to build a facility that may get shut down in the next administration. And so really in the early 2000s in the Bush administration, they took a serious effort with NGNP and a couple of other initiatives to restart the recycling economy. But what I believe was one of the most successful geopolitical programs was the worst economic variable for reprocessing, which is the Megatons to Megawatts project.
Correct.
Phenomenal from a geographical perspective because it really created a rapprochement between U.S. and Russia using each other's high-enriched uranium. But that also made fuel extremely cheap, and it didn't justify reprocessing making sense. So now we live in a very different time where the price of uranium has tripled out of what it was 4 or 5 years ago. We have growing liabilities to the U.S. government. We have a potential $45 billion remaining liability just in litigation between the utilities and the utilities. So the utilities and the government, sorry. So there's definitely a why now moment. And I think, as just a broader message, I believe uranium is the new oil. And if we had actually implemented a nuclear economy here in the United States, more so than an oil and gas economy, I think today we'd be living in a very different world. So here's our chance.
Good. Well, this podcast is focused more on the back end of the nuclear fuel cycle for nuclear power. This podcast has not discussed this previously, so I think it's very good that we've had this good starting education from you, Carl. So thank you very much for that. Now, before we sign off, this audience is worldwide now, so please, if there's a message that you want to give, most of the people are probably non-nuclear, but maybe you want to just pass along some information to them. Please, the microphone's yours.
So very difficult to think of all the different messages that you want to convey, but I think one of the key taglines here is uranium is the new oil. And nuclear is going to be the dominant source of electricity and energy altogether if we want to be able to propel civilization forward. If we want to do space exploration. And it's only a matter of time, but we need everyone that's listening to this podcast to chime in, to be an activist, to question their original preconceptions around nuclear. Because again, my father got beat up by riot police in France fighting nuclear, and here I am being an unapologetic supporter of it. So
well, thank you very much for stopping by.
Absolutely, thank you so much.
And good to see you again.
It's always
Thanks,
a pleasure.
Audience. We'll be back again in a few minutes.